last May, we rediscovered a transcribed diary in our archives. And Melanie came to me and said, I think this would make a good History Speaks program. Now, I don't know if she thought she'd be the one giving the presentation, but she is. So we have Melanie Brown and Lee Bracken, who are from our archives. They are our lead archives person. And we are going to be discussing what they have been looking at for months. Farmland in the 1880s in just a little south of this area, a little southwest of this area. So what we're about to discover is that many pieces of that past are here today. We actually drive by them all the time and don't notice them. And Lee and Melanie are going to tell us a little bit more about that. This area of land that we do sit on right now was annexed into Upper Arlington in 1954, just to give you some perspective. And it was pretty much farmland at that time. So we are going back again to the 1880s. Let me introduce the speakers. Melanie Brown was our executive director from 2014 to 2021. And she led us through our 2018 centennial celebration and established many of the foundational programs that we run today as a society, including History Speaks. So, and she since retired to lead our archives as a volunteer. And Lee Bracken, well, she grew up in Upper Arlington and left the community for a career as a reference librarian, and now has returned to UA, retired, to volunteer in our archives. And we're so honored and pleased to have them both. And with that, I'd like to welcome Melanie and Lee to the podium.
Good evening, and welcome to you all. We want to present the history of an area of Upper Arlington, which many of you will probably know quite well. This area features a main road, Reed Road, and we want to focus on a specific part of it, from Fishiner to McCoy Road. Many of you will be familiar with these present-day buildings. Excuse me. Hastings Middle School, Fire Station number 72, St. Andrew Church, and Bryce Eck Activity Center. Now we want to take you back in time. Imagine, if you will, a world without cell phones, without computers, without TVs, even without cars. A time before 1900, actually back to the year 1883. Why that year? Because a young woman, 18 years old, kept a diary that year. She wrote about her life every day that year while living on a farm in this area. We'd like to share aspects of her diary with you that describes what life was like in 1883. Now Melanie will introduce you to this woman.
Thank you, Lee. Hi, everybody. Our program, as you know, is Eva's Diary 1883, so it's time to meet Eva. There's the star of our show. This is Eva May Wareham. Eva was born January 25th, 1865, about 2.5 months before the end of the Civil War. Her parents were Moses and Rebecca Wareham. Her mother, Rebecca, sadly died when Eva was an infant. So Eva was sent to be raised by her aunt and uncle, that is, her mother's sister, whose name was Lucetta, and Lucetta's husband, John Walcutt. In Eva's diary, Lucetta and John Walcutt are referred to as Ma and Pa, even though technically they were her aunt and uncle. This is a very, very simplified family chart. These are big families, but we're keeping it simple, the main players. We'll start with Robert Walcutt. He was born in Loudoun County, Virginia, and moved with his family to Perry Township in the 1820s. In 1833, Robert inherited 230 acres from his father when his father died. Robert was married to Susanna Legg, L-E-G-G. This is going to come up a lot, Susanna Legg, and they had 12 children. One of the 12 children was John, and he's the one married to Lucetta, and their Ma and Pa in the diary. They didn't have any children of their own, only Eva, who they did raise. Immediately south of Robert Walcutt's farm was another farm, and it was owned by Thomas Legg. That's an important name you're going to hear many times tonight, so remember Thomas Legg, L-E-G-G. Thomas Legg also had been born in Loudoun County, Virginia. He also moved with his family to Perry Township in the 1820s. Not only were Robert and Thomas neighbors and contemporaries, they were also brothers-in-law. Robert's wife, Susanna Legg, was Thomas Legg's sister, so those two were siblings. So imagine these two neighboring farms with two very large families who are connected by marriage, and all those first cousins growing up next to each other. It was a very close family and environment. And in a sense, Thomas Legg's farm is with us here tonight. Here is his actual barn, a picture of it. It was built in 1838. This photo was taken in 1954. In the late 2000s, the Legg barn was saved from demolition by a partnership of the Upper Arlington Historical Society, the City of Upper Arlington, the Upper Arlington Community Foundation, the Friends of Ohio Barns, and the Timber Framer Guild. Through Raise the Roof fundraising, this Amelita Murillo Event Center was built, featuring the hand-hewn timbers of the historic Legg farm in its entrance. You can see over there.
No. Over there.
Okay, now here is an early plat map from 1856. First of all, before we proceed, we have to thank the Franklin County Engineer's Office for all these maps that we're using tonight. And before we proceed, I might test your knowledge. We're talking a lot about Perry Township. Now, Ohio, as you know, has 88 counties, and each county is comprised of townships. Who knows how many townships are in Franklin County? How many?
18.
Close?
30.
No. There are 17 townships in Franklin County. Now, this township, Perry, is long and skinny. It starts down at 5th Avenue and heads 10 miles straight north all the way to the Delaware County line. So just south of Powell. The western border is the Scioto River, and the eastern border is more or less the Olentangy. There is a strip of land that sometimes pops in and out. Just think Kenny Road. That's kind of the border of Perry Township. Now, let's take, in southern Perry Township, that we're going to be talking about tonight, is everything Bethel Road south down to 5th Avenue. So essentially, not essentially, Upper Arlington, all of Upper Arlington is in southern Perry Township. Now let's take a look at the Walcutt and Legg properties. This is a close-up of the same map that we just looked at. On this 1856 map, we point out 3 main roads, and we'll continue to point these 3 out on all the subsequent years that we have up here. First of all, there's today's Fishinger Road. There's today's Reed Road, sorry. And then today's McCoy Road. Now, on the north there, where the laser is Robert Walcutt's farm. Maybe Lee, you can outline it. There you can see. You see his name, it says RES of Robert Walcutt. RES is short for residence of Robert Walcutt. And that little dot where the laser is, that's where his homestead was. You can see it says 230 acres. And then below that, you can see Turkey Run. That's the run that goes all the way, meanders through the property. Just below Robert Walcutt's farm is Thomas Legg's 100 acres. Okay? Now we're going to turn it over to Lee to take you further.
Here is the next shot in 1872. Again, let's look a little closer again at this. Here are the three main roads, Fishinger, Reed, and McCoy. Here is Robert Walcutt's land and Thomas Legg's property. Also, here's Turkey Run again, which was an important source of water. Turkey Run is part of the Olentangy watershed. This is a view of the sign which marks Turkey Run near Hastings. On the left is Turkey Run at the bridge on Lane Road near the library in 1958. It looks high after a rain. On the right is the water coursing through the OSU golf course. Here is the 1883 plat map, and we're going to zero in on this as well. Again, the three roads, Fishinger, Reed, and McCoy. And here is Robert Walcutt's land and Thomas Legg's property. But on this map, the only change is the label, Robert Walcutt HRS period, which stands for heirs. Later, we'll show you a map that shows more of the heirs. Chores. Now that you've got a lay of the land, what was happening on the land, on their farms, in their communities? One of the first themes in Eva's diary was all of the chores that needed to be done on the property and in the house. First, let's take a look at their farming chores outdoors. Eva helped butcher hogs, dress chickens, milked cows. She wrote about farm work that others performed, husking corn, wheat and grass, plowing, fence construction, taking hogs to market, planting locust trees, planting vegetables in the garden. She also went blueberry picking and what's called hickory nutting. Here are some quotes from Eva's diary that mention outdoor chores. I'll pause while you read the quotes. NC is North Columbus, and we'll talk about that soon.
Where was the mill?
We think
The last
we
line.
think the mill is on Scioto River.
Oh, maybe the one in Clintonville, the west edge of Clintonville.
It's possible.
It's possible, we're not sure. Then there were the indoor chores. Eva churned butter. That's not Eva, by the way, but she churned butter. She baked bread, cake, and donuts. She completed housework, sewed and mended clothes, did lots of ironing, made rickrack trim for clothing. By the way, rickrack, seen on the right on an apron, is a flat piece of braided trim, shaped like a zigzag. It provided a finished edge to fabrics, and its popularity was in part due to its sturdiness and ability to stand up to harsh washing conditions. Eva washed clothes, made soap, canned plums, pumpkin, crab apples, corn, and tomatoes, made peach preserves, peach butter, apple butter, and tomato ketchup. For example, they picked 11 quarts of plums off trees and crab apples in August. Here are some quotes from Eva's diary that mention indoor chores. I'll pause while you read them. You can use most any type of fruit to make vinegar.
Peddlers and getting goods. Even her family certainly produced many goods on their farm, but they also shopped in downtown Columbus and in North Columbus. I'll give you one moment to read that. The town she mentions in the first quote is downtown Columbus, which she records going to 129 times in the 1 year period. Many times she would go with Paul, but sometimes she went by herself. In the second quote, she mentions North Columbus, as Lee was referring to. North Columbus, we'll show you where it was exactly in a moment, next slide. Sometimes she would just abbreviate it as NC. Okay, here's the 1872 map of Clinton Township. That's our neighbor to the east. And the two arrows point to where, first of all, go down to the Agricultural College grounds. Right there, that's Ohio State. And then just north of that, along High Street, was North Columbus, centered at Hudson and High. And they would get there from Perry Township by crossing the little bridge. Right there on the map, you can see a little bridge, and it's today's Doddridge Street Bridge. Here's a photo of the area today. Now we call it Old North Columbus, but at the time they called it North Columbus. Again, that's Hudson and High is the center of it. In addition, numerous traveling salesmen, or peddlers, as Eva called them, would visit the farm. They would sell a variety of wares, including fruit, tin, salve, washing machines, tablecloths, molasses, paint, chairs, books, sewing machines, pots and pans, and utensils. Churches. Eva and her ma and pa had a very active church life. There are over 70 references to church or prayer meetings in Eva's diary. Their home church was the Baptist Church. The Baptist church they attended still stands today. You may recognize this little church. It's near the intersection of Ackerman Road and Olentangy River Road, across from the old section of Union Cemetery. Most recently, it was a shop selling OSU merchandise, but it's currently unoccupied. The sign above the church says, above the doorway says, Clinton Predestinarian Baptist Church, 1870. And this is the primary church. This was their home church, the one they went to the most. However, she mentions 3 other churches in the area as well. From Cuba. Another church Eva would visit is the Union Church. Union Church was so named because 2 denominations shared the building. One was Episcopalian, and it was represented by pioneer families Sly, Lakin, Lyle, and Umball. The other denomination was German Reformed and included the Mott, Vogel, Feniger, and Kenny families. All of these names I just read, you would find if we got those maps up and unrolled them. The Union Church, it was built in 1852, but it no longer exists. But it stood on a corner we have all driven by many times at the intersection of Fishinger and Kenny Roads. This office building is approximately where the church was located on that point. Here's another view of that office building just from across the road. We've got Kenny Road and Fishinger. Kenny is there, and Fishinger West is there. So there it is. Again, for reference, here's that 1872 Clinton Township map. And you can see Union Chapel up there at the little point. And Eva would go down Kenny Road and take a left right there at Ackerman, our today's Ackerman, see John Ackerman Farm is there, and get right to the Baptist Church. On the map it says BAPT.CH, that's the Baptist Church at Olentangy and Ackerman again. And again, just for reference, there's the bridge at Doddridge Street, and you could get right over to North Columbus after service. Go have brunch. On several occasions, Eva attended Fletcher Chapel, built in 1848, and it was part of the circuit rider system of the Methodist Episcopal Church. Here's an interesting photo of the interior of Fletcher Chapel. I'll let you read that. Eva would travel around by horse-drawn buggy. In fact, her family ordered and received a brand new buggy during 1883, and she writes about that. And you can also see, as she was traveling about, she kept warm with a duster on her lap, a duster she would have sewn herself, and she records that as well. We're lucky that Fletcher Chapel still stands today, although it's a private residence. It's on Riverside Drive, right at Henderson, where Henderson dead ends into Fishinger or Riverside. It's at the southeast corner. Again, it's a private residence today, but it still stands. The fourth church that Eva mentions is Wesley Chapel, located across the Scioto River on what's today's Dublin Road. It's in Norwich Township, which is our neighbor to the west. The chapel was adjacent to Wesley Chapel Cemetery. The cornerstone of the chapel indicates it was first built in 1839, rebuilt in 1854, and rebuilt again in 1881, 2 years before Eva visited it. While the Wesley Chapel Cemetery still exists, it's owned and operated by Norwich Township. The chapel itself, pictured here, is now a private residence.
Education. In 1883, southern Perry Township had at least 5 known schools. One of them was on Robert Walcutt's land. 3 of the arrows are pointing to the roads again, Fishinger, then we have Reed and McCoy. The 4th arrow there is pointing to schoolhouse number 5 in the corner of Robert Walcutt's land. It was located on the present-day OSU golf course on McCoy Road between Reed and Kenny Roads, across from present-day Greensview Drive. Behind this interesting group photo was the one-room brick schoolhouse, number 5, also known as Swamp College. Now, why such a name? We're not sure, but it could have to do with the low land and high water table in the area. Also, several teachers over the years came from Worthington, considered a seat of intellectual vigor, shall we say. Swamp College, along with other one-room schools, consolidated into one building known as the South Perry Township School. It's the original building that many of us know on Fishinger Road, where Wellington School is today. It was built in 1918, but started receiving students within 2 years. Note the young lady in the photo. She is Hedwig Geyer, and we'll show you where she lived in a minute. Social life. When reading the diary, what strikes one is the frequency and quantity of social contacts. Friends and neighbors dropped by nearly every day. Many of these neighbors were Walcutt relatives, as well as Legg family members. The door was always open, from one person to as many as 17 at a party that Eva gave. Here's an entry in May in which many relatives and friends were having a good time. I'll pause while you read her quotes. I love how they were cutting up all day. Eva went to Mr. Kenny's for a strawberry social, attended a lawn fete at Will Shattuck's home. It mentions various ice cream socials, taffy polls, and birthday parties. Eva records sleigh rides, up to 16 in one load. She also went to the fairgrounds, or to see Jumbo the elephant at a circus downtown. Also, social activities took them around Central Ohio. Eva took the train to West Jefferson for a dance party on New Year's. Eva visited Greenwood Lake in Delaware in honor of a friend's birthday. I'll pause while you read. Three at night. Developed in 1873, Greenwood Lake is still an active recreational destination, now as a summer camp. Eva went to Hayden Falls on the west side of the Scioto River. Here's an old scenic photo of the falls. I'll pause while you read these two quotes. Paul traveled to Hilliard, Gahanna, Westerville, Dublin, Harrisburg, among other places, and Eva went to a party in Plain City. She also took the train to Licking County to visit her relatives and stayed for 2 weeks around Christmas.
Fragility of life. In her one-year diary, Eva used the phrase sick 97 times. Sometimes she's writing about herself, sometimes she's talking about Ma or Pa being sick. Headache, boils, sore throat, dreadful lame back, intestinal issues, bad teeth. But she also records health challenges of others in the township, generally more serious in nature: measles, dropsy, typhoid fever, pneumonia. Dr. Galbraith lived nearby where Kingsdale is today, and he would make house calls. Eva records 9 deaths during the year 1883. Only one of those was due to natural causes in old age. The other 8 were premature deaths and due to sickness or complications from childbirth. One death that hit close to home was that of Minerva Legg. January 16th, Paul went down to Uncle Tom Legg's to see Minerva, who is very sick with a kind of dropsical trouble. Dropsical trouble. She was having trouble with digestion in the liver. A week later, she was improving. But by September, it was clear the disease had worsened and her time was near. On November 14th, Minerva Legg died of dropsy, what today is known as edema. Edema means swelling caused by fluids in the body's tissues. Minerva was 41 when she died. She was a school teacher and unmarried. She lived with and cared for her elderly father and Legg family patriarch, Thomas Legg, and his second wife, Hannah. After Minerva's premature death, Thomas Legg wrote a codicil to his will stating that the $200 he intended to leave to his beloved daughter, Minerva, now be used for a family monument. Here is the monument dedicated to our dear sister in the Legg Walcutt Cemetery. Minerva's monument is not alone. There are other family members and friends buried with her in the Legg Walcutt Cemetery, which some of you may know. It's adjacent to Wellington School, and you can reach it in the approach into Wellington. It's on your left. The first burials occurred in 1840, and sadly, they were young children. In 1865, Robert Walcutt formally deeded this land so that it would always be a graveyard, and it was important to have road access. And to this day, his provisions have been honored. On the left is the monument for Thomas Legg and his first wife, Amelia. Their daughter Minerva's inscription is on another side. On the right is the Walcutt monument for Robert Walcutt and his wife, Susanna Legg Walcutt. This is the only cemetery that the city of Upper Arlington owns and maintains. As a matter of fact, a group of us from several agencies, including the city, cleaned the stones last October.
Back to the living. We'd like to share one last quote of Eva's, and I'd like to read it You can read it as well. January 25th, her 18th birthday. I have been working around all day, although I never like to work on my birthday. I wonder what I was doing 18 years ago tonight. Not darning stockings, I'll warrant. What changes in the past 18 years, and oh, how many, many in the next 18 years hence. Where I will be, no one knows, and I expect but few cares. But there is a hand that guides our weary, wandering steps. It's an interesting quote because it captures her rare, introspective thoughts on the occasion of her birthday. Here's the rest of the story about Eva Wareham, to borrow a phrase from the late radio broadcaster Paul Harvey. 2 years after this diary was written, Eva married. Who was her groom? Clues are found throughout her diary as the names of 2 young men frequently appear, Samuel Legg and Henry Reeb, who were close in age and lived on neighboring farms. We got serious and actually counted the number of times their respective names appear in the diary. Sam's name is mentioned 75 times, and Henry's 25. So who won her hand?
Drum roll, please. With that 3-to-1 ratio, it is no surprise that Samuel Thomas Legg won Eva's hand. Sam was born May 14, 1860, in Perry Township to John Legg and Mary Galbraith. John Legg was a son of Thomas Legg, making Sam, a grandson of Thomas Legg. They lived on a farm near Fishinger and Reed Road, and our research suggests that as newlyweds, Eva and Sam lived with his parents at their house near Reed and Fishinger until their house was built. Now, doing this project, one of the most exciting things was we learned that Eva and Sam's house still stands. Does that look familiar? This house is today's 3984 Reed Road. It's located approximately across from St. Andrew parking lot on Reed Road. The home has been carefully maintained by its current owners, and you can see the UA Historical Society's 100-year sign, indicating that it's a 100-year-old property or more, in this case, more. Eva and Sam became parents to 3 sons, and all 3 boys grew up in this house.
As promised earlier, here's a plat map of 1895. Let's take a closer look. The arrows point to the main roads, Fishinger, Reed, and McCoy. Robert Walcutt's heirs were John and Lucetta Walcutt, also known as Ma and Pa, who had property near Reed and McCoy. Just south of them was Eva and Sam Legg, and then south of them was James Walcutt, another son of Robert Walcutt, which would make him Pa's brother. On the other side of Reed is property inherited by Hannah Legg from her husband Thomas. And then north of her, by 1895, were 2 owners who were not Robert Walcutt's original heirs, Emma Barbie and William Johnston. I'd like to point out that Sam Legg grew up, and Eva and Sam lived as newlyweds, where you see John Legg's property near Reed and Fishinger. And Henry Reeb lived next door. It was a close community. Eva would often write of going down to Uncle Jim's. On the left here, Paul's brother, James Walcutt, most likely lived in this house on Reed Road. Over the years, several people owned the property, including Ethel and John Geyer, parents of student Hedwig, who we saw standing in front of the school earlier. This photo is from 1949, and note, unpaved Reed Road at the time. On the right is what is now on the property, the Bryce Eck Activity Center, part of St. Andrew Church. On the right is McCoy Road, looking west toward Reed at the light. And on the left side of this photo would have been John and Lucetta Walcutt's farm, where Eva lived during 1883. The farm's water pump is still on the property to this day.
Eva and Sam's property on Reed Road sold in 1921 to the Hartsook family. However, Eva and Sam appear in the 1912 Columbus City Directory living here. This is 265 East 11th Avenue, not far from Ohio State and the fairgrounds. It's unclear who occupied their house on Reed Road during those 10 years. It's possible they leased the farm and someone rented the house before they sold it. Over the years, Sam shifted from farming to become a partner with the Roberts Legg Insurance Agency, where he worked at 33 North High Street for 35 years. Eva and Sam spent their remaining years in this home on East 11th Avenue. Eva died in 1937 at age 72, and Sam passed away in 1944 at age 84. They are both entombed in the mausoleum at Old Union Cemetery, which you can see from Doddridge Street. Of their 3 sons, only one had a child, a daughter named Jean Legg. She transcribed her grandmother Eva's diary in the 1980s, and a copy was given to the Upper Arlington Historical Society. Jean Legg did not have any children, so Eva and Sam's direct line died out with her.
We're going to end on a high note with a rare aerial photo taken in 1938. For reference, the dotted lines show the original property boundaries of the Walcutt and Legg farms. And you see the roads there, Fishiner Road and Reed and McCoy up there. Here is the same photo in which we have circled various structures that we want to explain on the next 3 slides. We're going to divide this photo into 3 sections, starting at Fishiner Road and work our way north. Let's start with the first section. Let's take a closer look at the Legg farm with its southern boundary of Fishiner Road. You see the South Perry Township School, later called Fishiner School, and then later Fishiner Elementary School. Thomas Legg and his second wife, Hannah, lived at this house about where Hythe Road is today, south of Hastings. Thomas died in 1888, and his widow Hannah lived there until her death in 1902. The Legg Walcutt Cemetery is on the border of the 2 properties. Moving a bit north along Reed Road, let's take a closer look at the Walcutt farm. Here is Robert and Susanna Walcutt's house and farm buildings. They would be near where Lytham Court is today. This is north of the fire station. Across the road is Eva and Sam's property, and note the sizable orchard in the back. Then Pa's brother, James, and his wife, Almira Walcutt's property is where the Bryce Activity Center is today. Moving further north along Reed Road, here's John and Lucetta Walcutt's home near the corner of Reed and McCoy. This was where Eva was living when she wrote her diary. And in the northeast corner of the original Robert Walcutt farm is where the Swamp College schoolhouse would have been. It was put up for public auction in 1922. We have one last photo, a contemporary aerial photo. We're going to move 85 years now, from 1938 to contemporary times, in which our structures are superimposed on the photo. Now I've got an interim piece here. So this is going to dissolve now into, this is contemporary photo of the area. And just to point, there's a lot going on here, but I'll point out Fishinger Road here, and then Reed Road, and McCoy. We have the South Perry Township School down here, which is where Wellington is now. And then Hastings Middle School is right there. And what we'll do, we'll put this photo up at the end in case anyone wants to view it longer.
As Paul Harvey would conclude, and now you know the rest of the story. Thank you for traveling back to the 1880s with us. We also want to thank the numerous people and agencies who made this program possible tonight.
Well, I think we can all tell that they have been living like it's 1883.